How are we doing today, guys? I hope everyone is having a wonderful Wednesday so far. My name is McCry Stoolin, and here on Crafting with Crow, we work on a current project from Native Crow, Taxidermy and Oddities LLC, while I tell an interesting story of a topic that is on my mind. Here are a few places you could find me, like me, share me, and subscribe to my channel to keep up with new projects and posts weekly. Alright guys, so I was going to work on part 2 of the raccoon satchel bag, but I unfortunately broke my taxidermy needle. I used a very specific needle for stitching up the thicker leather on these treated pieces, and it snapped in half, so I had to order more needles. So until I get those, we're gonna have to work on other projects for the time being. So today what we are going to do is take these raccoon paws and preserve them in these recycled bottles here to turn them into a cute little curio or shelf display. And these are the paws that were on that raccoon that I'm turning into the satchel bag. I did not need the paws on that satchel bag, so I wanted to repurpose them and use them somewhere else. So today we're going to be talking about a particular movie that I was thinking about the other night when I was lying in bed. I was thinking about a topic that I want to do for a future everything freaky and full of mystery that I upload every Friday. And in thinking about this particular creature falling in the supernatural category, I started to think about this movie that I had seen a couple years ago that I thought was a very, very good movie. So this movie kind of revolves around a very famous vampire that we know as Dracula. And he is depicted in a very scary way in this. It's not like the dressed up, super fancy, I want to suck your blood. It's more of a scary creature that stalks and hunts the people. So this movie that I'm going to be talking about is called The Last Voyage of Demeter. In this movie, it starts out this scene where a lot of crewmen are kind of loading up a ship. There's this ship that is leaving dock and transporting goods across the ocean to England. And in this scene, there is a box being loaded onto the ship that has this emblem on it that one of the people on the dock saw and started shouting, like, that's a bad omen, that's a bad mark, your ship is, something bad's gonna happen to your ship, nobody's going to make it out alive on that ship. And because of the way this man was talking, the ship lost a crew member. He no longer wanted to be a part of this ship because he was scared that something bad was going to happen. So because of that, there was a man standing nearby who really wanted to travel to this other part of the world and volunteered to take that guy's place on the ship. So this man was allowed to join the ship. He kind of felt like it was all just a superstition thing and didn't really entertain it much or feed into the bad omen talk too much. So he joined the ship. On the ship, it's just a bunch of men, a captain, and the captain's, I think he was his grandson, a little boy. He was pretty young. And then this ship also had livestock animals that it was transporting. It wasn't just like the cargo and stuff. It also had livestock animals. So the little boy's job on the ship was to kind of tend to the animals and make sure that they were all taken care of and everything. So as the ship leaves the dock and starts its voyage, the little boy kind of talks to the new man that joined the ship. This new man is a doctor. And he talks to the doctor and kind of explains to him like how things operate on the ship, and they do this knocking on parts of the ship to kind of communicate with each other if they need help with something, or if they're just trying to signal to someone that, hey, I'm here. They'll knock on a certain part of the ship and it'll kind of echo along, and you could tell which direction these knocks came from. So he's showing him that, and then the little boy shows him like the livestock animals and just rules of the ship. This man that decided to join the ship is kind of become this little boy's responsibility. He was assigned to teach the man the ways, pretty much, while the captain was taking care of other responsibilities, and the other crew members were taking care of their responsibilities. So this little boy shows this other man everything, and things seem good at first. Things seem kind of quiet, but then out of nowhere they start noticing weird noises coming from places. They start noticing less rats on the ship, because all ships kind of have rats. And then they notice that some of the livestock animals suddenly were attacked, and all the blood was drained from them. And at first they were quick to say that it was the dog that they had on the ship. They had this Labrador retriever that was kind of part of the ship, and the boy took care of the dog, and it was blamed on the dog that the sheep and stuff were attacked. And the crew members were trying to kind of separate the dog from the other animals to keep this from happening again. Well, then it turned around and the dog ended up getting attacked. So then at this point they knew that there was something else on the ship. So at this point they decided to do a search across the entire ship and try to find whatever is living on the ship and attacking all these animals. So they go down to, they hear knocking sounds, and they go down and look in the area where all the cargo crates and stuff are kept. And when they get down there, they notice that there's a box that has been opened already. And then there's another box that actually has a woman inside of it. And they notice that the woman still has a pulse. She's still alive, but she's been in this box for X amount of days without any food or water. So then they go and get her out, and they notice that she's really weak and pale. And with the new man that joined the ship being a doctor, he started performing a blood transfusion on her to try to save her. And it's apparently a superstition that it's a bad omen or bad luck to have a woman aboard a ship like that. So some of the crew members are kind of panicked and angry at the fact that there's a woman on the ship, But this doctor is insistent that it's not a problem, and no, we're not going to throw her overboard because she's a woman and she needs help, pretty much. So he helps her and gets her better to the point where she's awake again. And it's at this point that she starts to kind of tell her story about what's going on. It's already been expressed to her that some of the livestock animals have been attacked and some of them are disappearing. And she instantly knew what this was that was causing this. And she started to tell a story about this dark, evil creature that was known to live in the mountains where she comes from, and that it would feed on the people. And she had pulled down her shirt in the back to show that she too had been fed on by this thing. So now it's not just the storytelling, it seems more real to these people that she indeed has been fed on by some creature. There are teeth marks all over her. And she said that the reason she was locked up in this crate and brought along was so that it could return and feed on her to get more strength. And at this point, I don't think any of the crew members had seen this creature yet. But it didn't take long before they did. There was a storm that had come through, and it was dark outside. I assume that it was nighttime, but I feel like anytime there's like a storming scene on a ship, it's always really dark outside. But there was a storm that kind of blew through, and the ship was swaying all over the place, and there were some crew members out on the deck that had to kind of keep an eye on everything as they were moving through the water, just to make sure that everything was safe. And there's this member that starts hearing this noise coming from under the stairs behind him, and he turns around and he sees this creature. It's like humanoid looking, but it's got really pale skin, and it's not clothed. You could see all of its bones poking through, and it's like belly crawling, super weak, and it makes this moaning sound that's just really eerie. All of it just seems really terrifying to think about, because when I watch a scary movie, I put myself in that character's perspective. I try to envision seeing what they are seeing and hearing what they're hearing and feeling what they are feeling. And if you put yourself in that kind of perspective or mind point while watching this scene, it is very creepy and like chilling to think about that this thing is like crawling out towards him, and he looks at it and thinks that it's like this weak, innocent, well, I guess probably not innocent, but this weak creature that's just trying to move towards him. So he just kind of stands there and looks at it, all kind of puzzled and stuff. And then as it gets close enough, it then gets up and pounces on him, and it just feeds on him until he's gone. He could just see it, like it's holding it down his head, and you could see the man like trying to turn his eyes to see this creature as it's chowing down on his neck. And it's just really, really freaky to think about and witness. But so this creature starts to feed on this man, and it finishes him off, And every time it feeds, it gets stronger and stronger. So the other crew members come out and they see him, they find him out there, deceased, and they start to look around the ship again, trying to find what this thing is, where it is hiding, and destroy it because it's hunting them down. And as the movie progresses, you see more and more of these crew members get picked off by this terrifying creature. And it's really sad. There's this part where one of the crew members gets attacked by him, and after they are attacked, if they're not just completely obliterated, they then turn into almost vampires themselves. Like, it'll turn into a situation where they can't go out in the sunlight, or it hurts them. They'll get really pale too, and they start to try to attack people. So one of the crew members that this thing attacked but didn't completely demolish they had tried to save him, and he ended up turning. So when he turned, they had locked the little boy into a room to try to keep him safe from the creatures, because now not only is Dracula out there, but this other man is out there. And this other man that's like turned into a vampire starts to try to pursue the little boy, and it scares the little boy into this corner, and the door is locked, and all the other crew members are out on the deck trying to hunt down this Dracula because he was just out there attacking someone else. And then they hear the little boy screaming, and they realize that Dracula found his way into that room where that little boy was hiding. And this Dracula ended up snatching the little boy up, which was really sad. Like, you're rooting for it to not happen, and you're hoping that somehow the crew members get in there and stop it from happening, but it doesn't work out that way. It ends up being a sad moment where Dracula does feed on the little boy and then just drops his body down. And the captain, by the time he gets in the room, it's too late, and he's obviously incredibly devastated. And because of that, he comes to the point where he kind of sets himself out as bait and sacrifices himself for the sake of trying to get rid of this Dracula. And at this point, we have lost so many of the crew members. There's just a handful of them left. And the woman, the man that they picked up from the dock, and a handful of others are still remaining. And the captain ends up sacrificing himself because he's still grieving the loss of his boy, and he wants to do everything he can to save the other members of his crew, his ship. So when that happens, they all attack Dracula as he is attacking the captain. But unfortunately, they are unsuccessful in taking him down. And Dracula ends up picking off everyone but that new man and the woman. And they only survived because the ship had wrecked into England. It had reached its location, and it had wrecked, and the woman and the man remained. They were kind of floating around on the wreckage, and Dracula had already taken off. as he had fed on all these individuals, he grew stronger and stronger every time, and he grew to the point where he had developed wings and was capable of flying from the wreckage over to England to the land. And at that point, he kind of disappeared. And the man was floating on the wreckage with the woman and telling her, like, it's okay, we're fine now, like, we made it to land, everything's gonna be just fine. And then at that moment, the woman kind of informed him that it wasn't fine. Because she had been bitten by Dracula and he had been feeding on her, she was actually turning into a vampire herself. And the only reason that her transformation was prolonged was because he kept giving her blood transfusions. So she had asked him to just swim to the shore and leave her there. The sun was about to rise, and the sunlight, as we all know with vampire folklore, sunlight cooks the vampires. They can't stay out in it without it cooking them alive. So reluctantly he took off and went to shore. He really wanted to be able to save her. With him being a doctor, it's kind of in his nature to save everyone that he can, but unfortunately it just wasn't an option for her. There's not much, I don't think there's much he could do for a vampire situation. But so he left her and went ashore, and while he was there, he kept catching glimpses of the creature. The creature was then wearing this suited, like, trench coat and a hat, and he almost had what would be the iconic look of Jack the Ripper. And that was actually something that my husband had said would be a really neat idea if they then took this and ran with that idea, that this Dracula being was actually Jack the Ripper, because it was like he had the right image and it was in the same setting. And that really would have been a neat concept or a neat idea for them, but everything I've read so far says that they're not going to continue on with making more of these films, because unfortunately this film was a huge flop. For some reason, it didn't get as many views as they expected it to, and that's really confusing to me, because when you see this vampire creature that is Dracula, the way that he is represented and the way that he evolves and transforms, he is made to look incredibly scary. Like I said, if you put yourself in that situation and feel what the characters are feeling, it is truly terrifying to just be on the ship and it's like storming outside, it's misty, it's foggy, you can't see more than 3 feet in front of you, and all of a sudden this winged creature comes flying at you and just slashes you, and you're doomed. You know that there's no hope for survival in this situation. That is a lot of what you see in this movie. And the way that they made Dracula kind of evolve and become more and more powerful and more unstoppable, and then he gets away, that is also just another, like, keeps your mind running. And I really wish that they would do more on this, because I feel like it was an amazing movie. I don't know if I really captured it in a way that, I know I didn't capture it how amazing it is. I really recommend that you guys check it out and watch it yourselves, because it really is a good representation of the vampire and the helplessness that people feel when they encounter a creature like this. There will be an upload of everything freaky and full of mystery involving vampires. I don't know exactly when that will be, but you guys will have to hop over to my Friday upload and check that out, because talking about vampires just makes me want to jump into that subject a little more and kind of deep dive into it. They are scary creatures when you think about them, and the possibilities, the stories, the movies. There's so much out there that you could see that's just going to capture the fear of these creatures so well, and there are so many different lores and myths to them, how they transform people. Some say that they have to drop some of their blood into your mouth for you to transform, but in this Dracula Last Voyage of Demeter, they just get fed on and then they turn into a vampire. So there are all kinds of different lores and scenarios to the vampire myth, and that's something that I do want to kind of dive into and talk about with you guys. But yeah, if you have not seen The Last Voyage of Demeter, I really highly recommend it. Don't have anything to lose to watch it. You can only gain from watching that. But it is a very good movie. Again, if you do watch it, put yourself in the character's perspective, because it will make you feel the absolute top tier level of fear. And that's kind of the goal with watching scary movies. I feel like you kind of want to feel it yourself and relate to it the best you can, to actually agree and say that yes, it is a scary movie. But I hope you guys like these little raccoon paws. I think I'm going to put a little more decoration up here. I have some material kind of like on this here, kind of like this. Put some pretty dinglies on there and kind of bring that a little more to life. But these things are awful cute. Alright guys, if you want to see more fun projects or have the opportunity to claim a piece for your home, be sure to check out my Facebook and Instagram pages. I post on there, and I do some exclusive claim sales on there too. I do also have an Etsy shop called Native Crow Oddities, so you could check out that shop too if you're interested in any of my pieces. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you guys all have a wonderful week ahead. Take care of yourselves out there, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.